A shot of Sambuca in your morning cup, coffee made with eggs, and cops bringing Dunkin' into Starbucks. This week, it's all about coffee.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. This is the place where we explore the great dishes and drinks of the world. At DestinationEatDrink.com, on YouTube at Destination Eat Drink 946, and here on the Destination Eat Drink podcast. This week, we're getting wired with everyone's favorite morning beverage, coffee. But first, if you've been enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review it on your podcast app. Helping us connect with more foodie travelers is what we're all about, and thank you very much. Coffee seems to be almost a universal drink, and I've talked about it with people from all over the world on the podcast. In this episode, we'll revisit some of my favorite Morning Joe conversations from Italy, Vietnam, Croatia, Serbia, and New Zealand. We'll try super strong coffee, coffee with a shot of liqueur, coffee with steamed milk, and even coffee served with an egg. Okay, I need a pick-me-up, so let's drink.
Destination Eat Drink.
Robin Giesling is a professional photographer and an expert on the wine doors of Florence. But on this day, we talk about coffee in Italy and our fascination with nuns spotted in the wild. I remember our first trip to Florence, and I love taking pictures. And two of my speaking of street photography, two of my favorite pictures were one was a nun throwing out a bag of garbage into a dumpster. And I don't know why I found that picture fascinating, maybe just that it was so incongruous to what I thought she should be doing at that time. But I love that picture. And the other one is two cops sitting in their cop car drinking espresso from china cups and saucers, you know, it struck me because it was my first visit to Italy, and I'm used to seeing cops drinking out of Dunkin' Donuts cups. These cops are drinking from real china in their cop car, and I'm like, these guys have it down.
Right. I mean, I have two very similar experiences to that. On a little side note was, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but at the Rome airport, the budget airlines like Ryanair and all that, their earliest flights are before public transit starts. So many people are sleeping in the Rome airport at night. And I thought I was going to be like the only one. It was going to be all spooky. Oh no, hundreds of people crashed out the night before for their early morning flights. Well, one time I'm sitting there on a bench and I'm just stretched out and I'm like, okay. And I don't know, something told me to turn around. And there's a nun in full habit, like the headdress and all of it, eating a salad with her feet up on a suitcase, spending the night in the Rome airport. And I'm like,
I love it.
Was not expecting that either.
Did not expect that here.
So then similarly with the coffee was, I saw a server leaving the bar and taking a full tray of like 6 or 8 cups and saucers to another building. She was doing takeaway for them, and they just trust people to bring their cups back. I'm like, okay.
Wow. Of course you're going to bring it back because, you know, you don't want to be ostracized the next time you go there. Like, where the hell's my cup?
We're like, Federico, where's my cup? Yeah.
That reminds me, I was just in Washington, D.C. last week for a little bit of business, and this really doesn't have anything to do with Italy, but it does have to do with coffee. And I was sitting, there was nothing open. All the cool coffee shops that I wanted to go to were all closed. So I had to go to Starbucks. And I'm sitting outside on the patio at Starbucks, sipping my espresso, waiting for my meeting to start. And a cop comes up, and he has one of those trays, those cardboard trays, and he's got 4 Dunkin' Donuts cups of coffee in the tray. And he walks into the Starbucks. And I was like, isn't this how the 30 Years War started? I mean, what is going to happen here? I should have gone in to see, to figure out what is the next thing that's going to happen, but I didn't. I sat there and sipped on my espresso and went on my way. But I just thought, talking about incongruous things that you see, that was one of my favorites. Sammy Dunham and Peter Austin are from the UK, but spend most of the year in the Abruzzo region of Italy. They tell me about enjoying a shot of Sambuca in their coffee in the morning.
Sambuca, another one, is not just kept for after dinner. It's drunk in the mornings with coffee, in your coffee. I would go to my neighbours' houses and they would give me coffee and there'd be Sambuca in it at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Get the day off on the right foot, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just they're not just kept for after dinner in Abruzzo. They are at different times, probably to what we're used to, having a digestive or something added to your coffee.
So this coffee with Sambuca, this would be what we would call a caffè corretto. The corrected coffee. And it sounds like it's pretty common to have that. How is the coffee in Abruzzo? Is there, I mean, in all of Italy, there's this coffee culture. Is it as strong in Abruzzo as it is in the rest of Italy?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, it's a complete social thing. I mean, that's you. And I think that's lovely in some ways that most people would just have that for breakfast and be social and still just, run into a bar, say hello and have their coffee and fly away again. But it's interaction, isn't it, with people, the whole Italian coffee culture.
That's right.
This is what it's like in Portugal. Me and my girlfriend have this joke now that coffee isn't coffee in Portugal because when you go out for a coffee, it winds up. We did it just the other night. We met some friends. It was going to be for coffee. 7 hours later, 2 bottles of wine and a bottle of sweet liqueur later, we were staggering home. It's like, what happened?
No,
we were just going out for coffee.
No, it's a social thing. I think it's really good, especially for elderly people.
Yes.
For example, in the UK, all the elderly people stay at home, they're watching their TVs. Whereas, for example, here, they would go to the bar and they would just have a coffee. It's lovely. And they're interacting with somebody at the beginning of the day, which means so much.
Yes.
When you're by yourself.
I think one thing you see a lot as well is outside the bars is, of course, there's furniture, isn't there? But you often see the old plastic chairs and tables just because people are playing cards in the street. And they might only have one coffee, but they'll hang around for a few hours. And often you think these people have known each other all their life, possibly. But, it's just nice to see they're just finding a way to spend some time together.
Tracy Nguyen is a foodie tour guide for Hanoi street food tours in Vietnam. She tells me the interesting story of the invention of egg coffee in Hanoi. Tracy, you mentioned earlier that Vietnam is the second largest coffee producer in the world, just behind Brazil. How would we enjoy coffee in Hanoi? What are the different ways to have coffee? Do we just drink it in the morning? What's it all about?
So if you go to Vietnam, you will see that coffee shop even full at night time. We can drink coffee anytime in the day, but it's not like we need coffee to stay awake like you do, but we just drink it for fun.
Okay.
We have many different versions. Normally people don't drink like very condensed and strong coffee, like espresso or something. But the most popular version of coffee is condensed milk coffee. The iced version, iced condensed milk coffee. That's the most popular one.
Coffee with condensed milk served over ice. So it must be very sweet.
Yeah.
Very sweet, right?
Yeah. But the coffee is very strong, so it's balanced.
Balances it out. Oh, good. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
And we can get that anywhere on the street, I would imagine. But I cut you off. You were going to tell me about egg coffee. Tell me about that, please.
Okay. So egg coffee is also an invention come out of poverty. And there was a chef who worked in a French hotel in Hanoi, and he realized that coffee with milk very delicious, but without milk very bitter. Vietnamese people cannot drink it. But we have chicken egg. Every family has chicken egg, so he replaced milk with egg and make egg coffee. So everyone can try the delicious um, milk coffee that he likes.
Egg coffee. So what do you do? Do you just whip the raw egg into the coffee? Is that how it's produced?
Yeah, it's more like egg custard.
Oh,
So
okay, that makes
custard.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it's very creamy and very foamy, very nice. Some people say that it's more like a dessert
I can imagine.
because the egg is very thick. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. Mary Novakovic is an acclaimed travel writer, and she tells me about Turkish coffee in Croatia and Serbia. You also talked about Turkish coffee. Is that the well? First of all, describe to me what coffee is like in Serbia and the former Yugoslavia. We're talking about Turkish coffee, so describe that specifically. And is that the main dominant kind of coffee that you would get in Serbia?
Well, Serbia is a different thing from different society, different region from the Serbian part of Croatia that my family is from. Mm-hmm. And because throughout Serbia, you'll find Turkish coffee all over. Croatia, not quite so much, because it's very much of a Serbian thing. Oh, having said that, Croatians love Turkish coffee, but a lot of them they'd rather have an espresso, for example.
Yeah, I remember drinking espresso mostly in Croatia myself.
Yeah,
but I wasn't looking for Turkish coffee, so it may well have been there, and I just missed it.
Well, they will call it domaća coffee, as in domestic coffee, and you find in Bosnia absolutely everywhere, and it's very, very finely ground coffee. But what you do is you cook it. You don't put it through a filter. You actually you cook it on the stove top and until it starts to boil, and you're stirring it, and you let it settle for a bit, and then you pour it. So it's very, very, very strong, and quite bitter, and you have to stop drinking it to the point where just before the grounds start to turn up in the bottom. It's very similar to, in fact, pretty much the same thing as Greek coffee. I don't know if you've ever had Greek coffee. But it's that same sort of thing. So it does give you a massive kick, and that's just what fuels the Balkans.
I love the Turkish coffee, and I always give the advice: don't gulp it down. It's not espresso. You don't do it in one shot, because then you wind up with a mouthful of coffee grounds in your throat, which is not a pleasant experience. But Turkish coffee is wonderful, and it's something everyone should try. Now that we know that we can find it in the former Yugoslavia, I'll have to do it on my next trip there. Speaking of drinks, you mentioned a little bit the plum brandy. It seems everywhere you go in the Balkans, they've got different kinds of brandy, plum brandy, and whatnot. Talk a little bit about that, and about where you would have it, and how people offer it to you and whatnot.
Well, in a region where fruit trees are absolutely everywhere, you have to make things with the fruit, and one of them is brandy. So you'll have plum brandy, and you'll have grapes as well, which is rather like grappa, their version of it. You'll have walnut brandy, lots of walnut trees everywhere, and you'll have quince, you'll have cherry, pretty much every fruit that grows, you'll make a brandy out of it, and it's a lot of it. Obviously, it's all made at home, which means it'll be a lot stronger than the sort of stuff that you buy in the shops.
Yeah, fire water.
It's yeah, absolutely, and you sort of get used to it. I've been drinking most of my life. And it's, you have sort of smoother versions of it. One of my cousins left his to mature for about 12 years, and it was absolutely wonderful. And it's drunk at pretty much any occasion. People offer it for breakfast at times. I've been offered, a breakfast brandy, and sometimes I don't, very, very, very rarely I'll have a breakfast brandy. But you have it, when you go into a house, would you like a shot of rakia? Or at lunch, or before lunch, or after lunch, and before dinner, and after dinner. And it's pretty much drunk anytime you have a coffee, most of the time.
Yeah. corrected coffee. We called it in Italy, coffee corretto.
Yep. Actually, no, you wouldn't have it in the coffee necessarily.
A shot next to it. Okay.
Next to it, beside it, absolutely, yes. And the same way that you'd have a grappa and then you have an espresso. And we also have what we call, we call it hot tea, but it's actually slivovica that's been cooked with sugar. And it's like a hot toddy in a way, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a lovely thing to have on a cold day.
Elle Armand-Jones is the founder of the Big Foodie Food Tours in Auckland, New Zealand. We talk about the disputed origin of the famous flat white coffee drink.
I don't think there's very many Kiwis who can get away without a decent coffee in the morning. I was just reading on the glorious Facebook a little while ago, someone asking whether they could bring their ground coffee in from Canada, because we're quite strict with what you can bring into New Zealand. And the flow of comments on this post just made me howl with laughter. Why would you want to bring Canadian coffee to New Zealand? New Zealand's got the best coffee. It was really made me smile. We have great coffee, and a lot of our roasteries here are roasting green beans. They're blending the origin of beans that they want. We work with a couple. One in particular is Miller's Coffee. With Craig's a stalwart of coffee production in New Zealand. He's taught me everything I need to know about roasting a coffee bean. We have the flat white, which is a double or single shot of espresso topped up with hot steamed milk. It's not a latte. It's slightly different. And there's always the banter between the Aussies and the Kiwis who came up with the flat white, but we'll put our hands up for that. There's a lot of roasteries. There's a lot of independent coffee roasted here. Yes, we've got Starbucks. Yes, we've got a couple of chains, but you can't go through any of the major towns or cities without coming across a really good roastery and a really good coffee shop. So leave your syrups at the door, leave your demi, capo, almond, flappy, whatever it is. Come and try some New Zealand coffee. You're never going to go wrong.
It's so good. I mean, the coffee is so good there. And I love the flat white, but you said something interesting. You're going to put your hands up. Does that mean you're not going to take sides, or that you're going to let the Aussies say that they invented the flat white? Because this is one of my favorite food fights, is that who invented the flat white? Did it come from Sydney or did it come from New Zealand?
I think I've spoken to so many roasters about this, and people who've been roasting for 25, 30 years. I will always bow down to Craig's knowledge in this. He says it comes out of Australia. I think we make it better over here. So we'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. I do want to ask you one more question about the flat white, though, because this is the reason why. I've seen flat whites are pretty much ubiquitous. You can get them in Lisbon now. In fact, in my city, that's significantly smaller than Lisbon, there is a place that just opened 5 days ago. They have flat white on the menu, and I think it's the first place to offer flat white in our city. But you can see flat white Starbucks even has flat whites now. But here's my question for you, Elle. So you've got your espresso, and then you've got your little foamed milk on top of it. But my understanding was that the milk was foamed a little bit different to have microbeads on top of the espresso with the flat white, whereas a cappuccino or a latte, it's more foam with bigger bubbles in there. So it's a lighter kind of foam that goes on top. But I was talking to some baristas who said, yeah, maybe it was like that before, but now basically we just foam all the coffee the same way. And flat white or cappuccino, it just is how much of the foam you put on top. My question to you is, as an Aucklander, do you think there should be, and is there any difference between the foam that you're putting on a flat white and the foam that you're putting on a latte or a cappuccino or something like that?
So cappuccino's got the foam on it, whereas a flat white has the steamed milk, which is the velvety, more of a microfoam, and it's smoother and silkier. So you've got a much creamier texture rather than a foam. So you're having a much smoother coffee than a black coffee with a white foam on top. That's how I would describe it to people. There's more time spent with making the milk more velvety than just having that milk with froth on top, as you would with a cappuccino. The latte flat white side of things, lattes to me tend to be stronger, whereas flat whites are more velvety and smoother. Does that answer that question?
Absolutely. And I kind of led you down that road, but I think you're kind of agreeing with what I'm saying, is that they're really two completely different things. And I don't know, you live in New Zealand, so maybe you haven't seen this, but it's kind of become now just there's one kind of foam milk that goes on top of everything, rather than flat white being its own distinct kind of milk coffee drink. So anyway, I'm glad you confirmed that for me, because when I'm right, I'm puffing out my chest and saying, see, I told you, you're not making it right. Okay, ending the episode on a little righteous coffee indignation. I like it. We'll have Elle on the show next month to talk more about Auckland and the Big Foodie food tours. That's just a little preview for you. If you want to listen and hear more from my guests, check out the show notes at radiomisfits.com/DED257. I've got links to their episodes. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, it's Kat Neville talking about the new season of her great TV show, Tastemakers. So don't miss that. And while you're waiting for it, we've got lots of food and travel at destinationeatdrink.com. You can also sign up for the free monthly newsletter. I just published a story about a bone chapel where a duke was murdered. It's quite the fascinating story and plot. Read that at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I also just posted a video about some of the best places to get pastel de nata in Lisbon. If you're coming to Portugal and want to have a pastel de nata, here are some of my favorite spots. It's the second video on pastel de nata, so between the two, I'm sure you're going to find several that you really like. You can watch that video by clicking on the videos tab at destinationeatdrink.com or on YouTube at Destination Eat Drink 946. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla, who loves a shot of Sambuca in his coffee, just without the coffee. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.